Hello and welcome to today's episode. I'm Lindsey Frances, sophrologist, psychologist and legacy advisor. And today I'm talking about the psychology of money, or the psychology of wealth. Isn't that an exciting topic? Well, here we go again, because of course talking about money is terribly taboo. We're not meant to do it. But if you've got children and you're living in a cashless society, of course most of us are, your children will have a very different experience of money than you had growing up. Why is it so important then to raise this conversation in the household? Why is it so important to be raising the awareness of what we think about money, how we feel about it, and what emotions have we got around it? And just check in with yourself. When I said what emotions have you got around money, did you feel blocked? Did you feel annoyed? Did you feel nothing? Well, emotional decision making is what drives financial success. There is more data around this than you would care to believe. And I'm not going to bombard you with research papers today. I'll save that for another time because it is something I love doing. But financial reward and investment success is primarily down to emotional behaviour, your feelings, and the way that you have been conditioned to think about money and investments. And if you haven't read the Morgan Housel book, The Psychology of Money, here I have it, in case you're watching on video, then please do. It's an absolutely brilliant book. I'm also particularly passionate about encouraging women to invest, and I'm going to come on to that more in a minute. But why is it so important to be talking about money? Well, as most of you know by now, most of my time is spent coaching and supporting high net worth chief executives, normally men, normally over 45. That seems to be my niche. And what do we talk about? Well, we talk about success. In fact, what we normally do is talk about energy and the fact that their energy levels are decreasing as they get older. Well, of course they are, because we're getting older. That's kind of how it works. We have less physical energy, but we have more emotional and mental energy. It used to be called being a wise old sage, or the wisdom of age. Of course, we don't step into that fully enough. So if you're feeling like that, can I suggest you go and read some work by Arthur Brooks? He is amazing, and he explains how to go from that really, really sharp intelligence into something that's much, much more wisdom-based. Today, I'm talking to you about the psychology of wealth and the disease of more. So let's make the assumption that you're listening and you've got enough money to live. So your Maslow hierarchy of needs has been met. Your basic needs are being met: food, shelter and water. You're living somewhere that's comfortable, and you've got an income that is sustaining your lifestyle without you running into massive debt. So why do you need more? Well, ask yourself that question right now. Why do you need more? Do you need more? Is it because you want to leave it behind? Because I do a lot of legacy advice work, I talk often about what it is we actually want to leave behind. And if it's just simply bags and bags of money, as tax-free as possible, well then that's great. But what do you want to do with it? Is that just so the future generations don't have to work? Would that even be something that you would want them to be contemplating, a life without meaningful work? Or is it to give them more options and choices, perhaps pay for education, or allow them to make their own decisions about how they want to spend their time without being financially short? Perhaps you were when you were growing up. Well, of course, those decisions are all informed by your own experiences. So the disease of more money, is that really what's going on? Are you really wanting more money, or have you attached meaning to money? Are you valuing yourself by valuing the amount of money you can generate? Are you chasing success, or are you just highly, highly competitive? And you've gone out in the world, started perhaps working, investing, or creating, and you've just become more and more successful, and now you can't stop. It becomes almost a competition with yourself. Or maybe you think other people are watching. Are they? Well, I can tell you this, they're not. Most of the time, we're so worried and preoccupied with what's going on in ourselves that we're not even thinking about other people. So when people say they're being judged, yes, we do social comparison. From an evolutionary perspective, we're very aware of who's around us to make sure we stay in the tribe. And of course, because we used to be hunter-gatherers, we're going out thinking, can I hunt for enough to sustain me? But here's the trick of nature. You already have enough. In fact, often I say to people, I have something many people we'll never have. And they say, what's that, Lindsey? And I say, enough. And then, of course, I have to check my ego. But we do have enough. And that is probably the most freeing mindset you will ever have. Do I have enough? If you do, then every choice you have to make between now and the day you die is yours. You can choose anything. So what will you choose? What legacy would you like to leave behind? And I often ask this of my clients, and I often ask it in a podcast. So I'm going to ask you now, listener, if you were surrounded by your family many years from now, perhaps towards the latter years of your life, what's the one value you would like to leave behind? And if you don't know what values are, I suggest you Google that, because there are lists and lists and lists, and this is about emotional granularity. Can you name that value that you want to leave behind? Do you really want to leave a family behind that is full of empathy or something different? Ask yourself and then try and live by that on a daily basis. So I've written myself some questions for this interview, and the next question I'm going to ask myself to explain to you is what happens in your body when you're also chasing more. You will all know by now that all my lovely clients, and in fact anybody I ever come into contact with, is wearing a wheat band or an aura ring. That's because I love to see what's happening in people's nervous systems. We really want to see what's going on in terms of fight or flight and rest and digest. So we can diagnose, am I existing with worry and concern about what's coming up? Or am I able to relax, switch off and relax in the now? When you're always chasing more, you will be in fight or flight. This is an evolutionary response. If you're out chasing a deer with a spear, you are in fight or flight because you're fighting for something. If you're sat at home around the fireplace relaxing, you are in rest and digest or parasympathetic nervous system. And the way we know this is because we're looking at heart rate variability. High numbers tell us we are flexible. Low numbers tell us we're not. You're either really in fight or flight a lot of the time, or you're in rest and digest, almost passive state, probably very depressed. So we're looking at the numbers to see where are we spending most of our time. If you are spending all day in fight or flight, your body is not regenerating. Your digestion is not working properly. Your body is not regenerating properly. Your cellular activation is not in a repairing mode. It is in a defending mode. So I'm not a scientist, but I will tell you that your CRP inflammation markers may be higher and your body will not be having such a good time. You must have balance. So when your mindset says, I have enough, you can relax and just be, rather than chasing more. The next question I've got is, why doesn't wealth bring the security people expect? Well, are lottery winners always really happy? Is every single millionaire or billionaire in the world, of which there are more and more, of course, as the wealth gap grows, are they super happy? Are they the pinnacle of perfect human flourishing, Jeff Bezos? Maybe not. But why not? If they've got more money than they can ever spend, Elon Musk, then why are they not out there with a megaphone declaring this is the way, the truth and the light for human flourishing for now and forevermore? Because it's not. And for those of us that don't quite have mega millions, we might be thinking, what a terrible shame, but it'll be different for me. Let me tell you, it won't be. True happiness and joy comes from within, and it's not relative to financial success. It's relative to how much you value yourself and the healthy soul fed inside. I've just come off of another podcast with an incredibly seasoned academic talking about the importance of religion, faith and spirituality in success and human flourishing. And I am going to ask you this. Do you think there's somebody out there that is greater than you, or something? Is there a force outside of you that's bigger than you? Yes. Could you consider that to be your higher power or your own God? Yes. Can you have faith in that power that's greater than you? Yes. What would that look like? And then how would you live accordingly to the plans that they have for you and the power they have over you? Because the reverse, of course, is the fact that you think you are the most powerful thing in the entire universe. You are the biggest force in the world. You are the biggest thing in your life. I'm not sure many people think that's true. And certainly those aren't the people listening to a podcast called Rich, Simple Human by Lindsey Frances. So what have you got faith in? What does that higher power look like? And this spiritual faith or religion that you've got, what's that calling you into? What have you been anointed to do with the gifts and talents you've been given at birth? And where have you been appointed to deploy them? That is your living legacy and will also form the basis of what you leave behind. That's an exciting concept, isn't it? And probably one to dig into another time in more detail. The next question I've got for you is never enough a trauma response? Is more a fear-based response to trauma hanging out in your past? This is such an interesting question and not one I'm actually going to answer because yes, of course, there will always be a reason behind why you're driving yourself so hard. In fact, I think it's 80% of American FTSE 500 chief execs are all first-generation immigrants. Please check that statistic. But it does say that when we have less, we drive ourselves harder for more. That's interesting, isn't it? Especially if you've thought that you are first-generation wealth and you're going to leave money behind. That would then suggest that generation 2 would be less motivated. Is that true? Well, we know that wealth transfer is only successful in about 20 to 25% of cases. So yes, I think that's telling us something, as well as a very complicated global tax conversation as well. The next question I'm going to ask to myself is what is different about people who feel content versus those who don't? What even is contentment? Let me ask you this. When do you feel content? Is it when you're looking at your bank account? Or is it when you're having a really deep connection with somebody else? Or is it when you're on your own, connecting perhaps with your source or self? That is contentment. So I suggest you go after more of that. And many people will say they don't have time to do that deep inner work. They don't have time to be still and know. They don't have time to reflect. This is a very dangerous space. If you cannot find the time to pause, you will never access the liminal space. That is the time between something happening and something occurring afterwards. That gap where nothing is happening, where everything is happening, where the transformation is taking place. I don't know if I've done that justice, but you get my point. We're trying to find that space where we're just being and allowing this moment to occur. We're allowing the processing to happen. We're allowing the assimilation of thoughts, feelings and emotions without being out there in the words, actions and behaviour. That is where contentment lives. Contentment is not a dopamine-driven shopping trip to Westfield. It's not a new car and it's not an exciting encounter on Tinder. Contentment is much deeper and much, much more important than that. So what are the warning signs that you might be suffering from the disease of more and not quite aligned with where you would like to be? It's a contentment problem. You won't be able to feel joy and you will be feeling restless. Do you feel like you can't settle? Do you feel discontent? Do you feel meaningless? Do you feel a disquiet in your soul? Well, those are the signs that you really could go on a lovely journey into finding out what purposeful being and living really means to you. So, how do we know when enough is enough? It's a subjective question that I certainly couldn't answer in detail, but the way I work with people is to explore their values and capacities. We explore strengths, we explore powers, and we explore contentment and moments from the past where they felt those absolutely fantastic feelings of joy and dissatisfaction and peace. Because ultimately that's what we're looking for. In sophrology, we always wish people confidence, harmony and hope. So let's hope that you can find those every day. I also suggest to people that they do a curiosity practice. And whenever they feel like they're furrowing their brow and thinking too hard about something, they actually step back using a process of self-observation and become curious. That's a great thing to teach. It's not easy to do, but it's very simple. Observing yourself and then observing yourself, being curious and wondrous. The world is an incredible place. Let's just wonder now about this lovely cup of tea. You can't see if it's hot or it's cold, but I wonder if it is. I wonder what it tastes like before I taste it. I wonder what I know about it before I even drink it. And I wonder how this cup has come to be. Just pausing and thinking about the simplest of things can really change the way you look at everything. Change your perspective and everything changes, of course. So back to legacy. Why is it so important? And why does thinking about the legacy that you leave behind when you're dead change your attitude to money now? Well, it's very, very important to understand why you're working and what you're working for. And if it's just the accumulation of stuff, then what will happen when you die? The more we contemplate the end of our lives, the more exciting we can be about living now. And of course, that's not said lightly, because those of us that perhaps are contemplating a shorter life than others, for whatever reason, will find that a more challenging concept. But when we're really aware of our mortality, then it accelerates our human flourishing. So why don't you try that? Thinking about, as I said earlier, how would you like to be in your latter years, and what would you really like to leave behind? I'm going to come back to another question now on why should women invest and the psychology of wealth. Well, this is a really interesting realm, because I often find the concept of investing is quite a masculine orientated conversation. It's reserved for people that are in the field of investment, that have money to spend and money to invest. But let me ask you this. Are you spending? Did you spend any money this week at all? Did you spend any money on non-essentials? And what would it look like if you could spend your money, instead of taking up a consumer orientated approach, but you actually took an investment approach and actually invested that money in something else? Do you consider yourself to be a spender, a saver, an investor, or a borrower? 80% of high net worth women don't have an investment portfolio. So why are we not encouraging ourselves to invest more? Is it because we don't understand it? Is it because we don't understand the importance of role modelling it? And is it because we simply don't know what to do? I am very fortunate to be involved in a number of groups talking about investing, angel investing, and education around investing. And I can't encourage you enough to do your own research. Some of this training is also free of charge. And for as little as a couple of £1,000, you could begin your investment portfolio and start really understanding what it means to invest rather than spend. Is that possible for you? Ask yourself that question as you're browsing through eBay, Vinted, or whatever other shopping sites you're looking for a bargain on. Could you redirect some of that spend into investment? It's really, really important in a cashless society that young people see us talking about money. They see us talking about spending, saving, investing, and borrowing as four distinct behaviours. So do you know yourself? Are you a spender, a saver, an investor, or a borrower? Or perhaps all four, and are they balanced? Because we really do need to role model sound financial decision making to our kids and those around us. And not just as a one-sided approach, being very masculine, but being feminine and masculine about it as well. It's also important to remember that when we do invest, we're putting money into other organisations that we might really believe in. We might not just be investing in great big companies or huge, huge funds, but we can actually invest on a much smaller scale and still get a return. Now, of course, I'm not here to talk to you about the nuts and bolts. There are far more experts in the marketplace than me to have those conversations with. But how would you feel about making a difference? How would you feel about investing in something that really meant something to you? Perhaps something much closer to home, or something aligned to a value or a passion that you already have. This is the psychology of wealth and investing. And I'd love to have more conversations about value-based investing and also faith-driven entrepreneurship and investment as well. So what do I really feel I'd like you to take away from this short conversation today? I'd really like people to be thinking about their own behaviour. I'd really love to be talking to people about their own money mindset. And that's a funny word, but every financial decision we make is not just made on logic, but it's made on intuition, emotion, and our experiences. So what have we experienced in the past that's hiding out in our subconscious that's influencing us now? And just to remind you, sophrology is the study of consciousness in harmony. When we are conscious of the past, the present, and the future as three distinct parts, then we become much, much more granular in our experience. We're able to make it much deeper, much more interesting, articulate it much more fully. And the same goes with our emotions. When we can really feel the emotions in our body, process them and articulate them, life becomes so much more joyful. It's like full 3D living, if you like. It's really deep human flourishing. And you'll hear me talk in the same way about money about emotions, about experience, about mental health, about spirituality, religion, and faith. When we can really find the language to explore and explain how we feel, everything else becomes so much more joyful. We've really become so much more conscious. It's a bit like learning a language in a country where you didn't understand it. All of a sudden, you can engage and you know exactly what's going on. And it's the same in human flourishing. So, until next time, please reach out with any questions. Please remember I'm here to talk about all things nervous system and legacy, wealth creation, financial mindset and leadership. And until next time, please stay rich and simple and human.